There was a time whenever I used to think that weeds in my lawn looked bad and they would drive me crazy. I always tried to do everything that I could to get rid of them. And now that I've actually started homesteading, or we started homesteading, I realized that this field behind me is a beautiful sight. That it is not only a field of natural plants, but it is one that has extreme medicinal and edible benefits. I think one of the most overlooked fundamental skills that a homesteader can have is the ability to forage. Now, I will say for edible plants, I'm not a big vegetarian. In fact, most of my salads tend to, be dressed up like a lettuce and tomato with buns and a grass-fed beef burger, maybe some onions and mayo. That's my type of salad. Throw in some extra bacon. However, I do know that there are some edibles that are actually in the wilderness that you can't actually get at most stores. Morel mushrooms are one of the most sought after mushrooms, and maybe there are grocery stores out there that actually have them, but most people just go out and hunt them themselves. So today I actually wanted to talk about foraging and what are some important things before you actually get started with foraging. Like, what are some things that you need to be concerned with? Let's start with those things because I think that they're oftentimes overlooked. One, if you're going out in the woods, you probably need to be aware of the fact that ticks can be really bad. Now, we use Ranger Ready, and I'll put a link in the description below. It's actually pretty good for ticks and mosquitoes. So it's supposed to last for up to 12 hours, and quite frankly, it smells like you're going to the club, so it almost smells like a cologne or that kind of thing. Not that you'd want to wear tick and mosquito spray to the club. But anyway, the bugs can be bad. Ticks in particular, some people, they freaks them out. They do carry diseases, some of them do. So that's one of those things that you need to be very careful with, especially depending upon how remote you actually are. One of the other things that you want to be careful of is snakes. Now, we actually have a considerable amount of snakes out here. We have a lot of water, we have a lot of underbrush, and so copperheads, water moccasins, timber rattlers, those types of things. I believe those are the three that we actually have. So I'm not going to lift my leg up high enough for you to be able to see it, but I will actually put a picture of snake guards. I actually have snake guards on with some good sturdy boots on underneath them. Snake guards are great. If a snake strikes you, then they'll actually hit that. They're not supposed to be able to penetrate it. I personally have not tested that, so I'm hitting the believe button and having a little faith that those are the types of things that would actually stop a snake bite. Now, obviously, where you are foraging, you're going to stick your hands down in there. You need to be cautious as to where you're sticking your hands because the snake guards will guard you there. But these things are extremely important. If you don't look where you're sticking your hand, you can actually get bit in the arm. I think the third thing that's important, and this is more of a comfort thing afterwards, but I still think it's important. If you don't learn any other plant on a homestead and you have no desire to even go out foraging, one, I'm not sure why you'd be watching this video, but if you decide that that's just not for you, I would say that you need to absolutely understand the poisonous plants in your area, whether it be poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, or anything else that can actually cause an irritation to your skin almost immediately. And if you've ever had it, it is absolutely miserable. There are some people that are they don't react. I was not blessed with that, and I react if I look at a picture of poison ivy. But make for sure that you can actually identify those, and make for sure if they're in your area, you are able to identify them from a long distance away because you want to steer clear. There are some remedies, in fact, there's some foraging remedies like jewelweed that actually helps to prevent and to actually keep you from reacting. But I'm getting ahead of myself. One last thing that I would actually recommend, and I won't point it out, but I would say have a few items before you go. One of the other protections that you might want to have is have some type of deterrent, especially if you're going into the woods. If you run across a bear, just like we do have bear in our area, not real worried about running across a deer or anything, but a bear, you definitely want to have something that is going to discourage him from coming around you. So some type of, whether it's bear spray, a weapon of some type, a big stick. Actually, a stick's not a bad idea anyway. So let me get where I'm going to go, and then we'll kick back on. So what do you bring when you're out foraging? Well, I'd say that there's a few things other than the stuff that we've actually already talked about. But one, and these are in no particular order of importance, but some type of bag. You need a foraging bag, something that you can put your herbs in, whether it be for medicinal purposes or for edible purposes. But you want to be able to carry them in something. You're not just going to carry them in your hands, because you want to keep your hands as free as possible. If you had picture Johnny Appleseed, that type of bag, like a over-the-shoulder bag.
You're not really wearing that, are you?
Wearing what?
The man purse.
Plus, it's not a man purse. It's called a satchel. Indiana Jones wears one.
Would be probably something pretty good to have. You can just stuff it in there and go on. Something else would be some type of sharp instrument, whether it be a knife or scissors, those types of things. You don't want to damage the plant because you want it to come back. It's important, and I'll kind of get into this as I get a little bit further, kind of talking about when you go to forage, make for sure that you don't just take everything from the plant. You want it to reproduce, you want it to continue to grow, so that it's not just one season that you get from that plant. So another big point, I think, would be a guide. I can't recommend this enough, but one of the dangerous things, I suppose, about foraging is not actually knowing what it is that you have. You need either a person that is actually familiar with the plants in your area. I think that that's a good thing. In fact, that's probably the best thing, to be honest with you, if you go out with a guide that's familiar with your area. A book is actually pretty good, but it's sometimes challenging because you kind of want to keep your eyes open, especially out in the woods like we are. If there's no snake just laying right there, if I'm looking at a book, that could be dangerous. There are apps. Picture this as one of them. It's a paid one. I think there's a way that you can do it without. PlantNet is another one. I just had to look it up. But PlantNet, I think, is a free one. You just create an account. It might not give you as much information, but it's at least going to help you identify the plant. Now, I would say that once you identify the plant, take it back, verify it with a book, verify it with somebody who is experienced. But you also have YouTube. There's a number of great channels on there for foraging, Facebook groups. I know we're in Eastern Tennessee. There's Eastern Tennessee foraging groups that are on here. You take a picture of your plant, and there will be other people that will actually kind of help you determine what it is. Trying to get into foraging and whatnot, how do you actually start? Well, my recommendation, particularly if you have some property, is start with where you're at. Look around you and see what are some of the most prominent plants that you see almost everywhere that you look, or maybe one that just really stands out. I'm going to flip the camera around here, and I'll actually kind of point out what I'm talking about. But as you're looking through here, I'm kind of walk over here. If you're looking around, you see things that might stand out. So like maybe these orange flowers here would be something that you can see a lot of. Not positive that that's actually showing up, but I sure hope it is. And I'll get around here and maybe get a different view. But that is something that is definitely going to stand out. Why is that? Like right here, we have this beautiful orange flower. And that actually stands out because there's a few of them. I don't know if you can actually see that, but there's a few more in there. It's orange and it stands out bright against the green field. So that might be something you would want to pick, identify, look up online, and see if there's any medicinal purposes or medicinal uses for that. Or maybe you have something that would be like this. And you'll see this plant in front of me. There is a lot of that. In fact, as I look out over the field, you can see that. Is there a use for that? Whether it be medicinal, whether it be foraging for eating edibility, those types of things. Here's another unique plant that is up here. Notice how it's fuzzy. So that would actually obviously stand out quite easily if you're just looking through your property trying to find something. So as you're walking around, you want to try to spot the things that would actually be like those. What is it that I can identify as I'm looking around trying to find various plants? So once I've identified a few plants that I notice that are very common on my property, or something that I can easily identifiable, just for reference, the three that I showed you, I think in order, the orange one is actually butterfly weed, the tall one is called ragweed or common ragweed, and then the last one is mullein. Now as it turns out, today I'm actually out here to harvest mullein. I personally know and have actually used mullein, so I'm very familiar with the benefits and actually how to use it and harvest it. That's for another video. But do your research. Figure out the plants that you have and see if it's something that could be used. I don't care if you live in the city. If you don't kill the weeds in your property, chances are really good that you have something, say plantain, whether it be a broadleaf or a narrow leaf. Look up plantain. It's called white man's foot, and it's everywhere. Plantain is probably one of the plants that is most important to be able to identify. I personally use it, and it definitely works. Do your research, and don't freak out and see all of these plants and say, there is no way I'm going to know all this stuff. Start with a few. Start with the ones that are like most prominent on your property, regardless of what it is. Find the ones that actually have benefit, particularly in medicinal benefits. I don't know your beliefs, but I believe that God has given us everything that we need here on this earth. I'm not saying to go off your pharmaceuticals and eat something green, but I am saying that a lot of the things that are actually growing from the ground is actually very beneficial to us. Mullein is a great cough suppressant. It definitely will clear out your lungs. They say even if you smoke it, it will clear out your lungs. I don't quite understand the science behind that. I've never done it, but I'm not saying it doesn't work. And today that is actually what I'm out harvesting, is mullein, trying to find enough mullein for a friend of mine. And I'm going to part on this, because if you have any knowledge or if you have anything that I've said wrong, please put it in the comments below. Whatever you do, don't harvest from the side of the road. You don't know what has been sprayed on that, and you don't want to take something that's supposed to be a medicine or beneficial and harm yourself or harm your family. Don't use a plant that you don't know 100% what it is. If you don't know 100% that that is exactly what it is that you're looking for, whatever you do, don't use it. And 3, make for sure that you're not harvesting on somebody else's property without their permission. That can, well, around here it might get you shot just because they don't know who you are. But ask permission before you go hunting for plants on somebody's property. And we'll actually get in further videos as to necessarily what you do with a plant, whether it be drying them out and turning them into a tea, an infusion, basically the same thing, or if you turn them into a tincture, what's the difference between a tincture and say a decoction or a salve or a lotion, putting them into soaps. I don't know how far we're going to go down this rabbit hole in future videos, but this is something that I'm very interested in, and I can tell you that I've used mullein and I've used plantain. I'm getting ready to harvest some jewelweed. If I left anything out, put in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You have no idea how much that helps the algorithm to boost our videos up and get us seen. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lee with Bluebelly Acres. See you on the next one.